She never said I love you. Not once. In 27 years. She never hugged me first. Never said she was proud. And when she died, I thought I'd already made peace with that. Then I found the box. And I realized she had said it. Every single year. I just never heard her. Growing up with a mother like that leaves a specific kind of mark. It's not the dramatic kind. There was no shouting, no cruelty. It was quieter than that. It was a silence after every achievement. The high standards that were never quite met. The feeling that no matter what you did, you were always one step short of being enough. And the advice everyone gives you, talk to her, tell her how you feel, ask for what you need. That advice assumes she's still here. It assumes there's still time. But what if the problem was never that she didn't love you? What if the problem was that she loved you in a language you were never taught to read? Because inside that box, sealed in envelopes she never sent, was a record of every prayer she whispered for you, every sacrifice she never mentioned, every moment she was proud of you and couldn't find the words. By the end of this, you're going to look at the quiet people in your life very differently, and you're going to want to pick up your phone. But first, let me tell you what was in that first letter. There's a type of mother who loves you like a project. Every achievement is logged, analyzed, and handed back with a note about what could have been better. Every mistake is a data point. Every success is a new benchmark, not a celebration. She wasn't cruel. Let's be clear about that. There were no raised voices, no broken dishes, no dramatic scenes. The house was always clean. Dinner was always on the table. School uniforms were ironed. Permission slips were signed on time. But if you asked that child, now grown, to describe what it felt like to sit across the breakfast table from her, they wouldn't use the word safe. They would use the word careful. You learn to be careful around her. Careful with your words. Careful with your failures. Careful with the kind of softness that invites rejection. A child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. African proverb. This child didn't burn anything down. They just, eventually, left. But we'll get to that. What I want you to understand first is that the wound wasn't dramatic. The most damaging wounds rarely are. It was built in the pause before a compliment that never came. In the birthday dinners that felt more like formal assessments than celebrations. In the fact that the word proud, 1 syllable, 5 letters, seemed to cost her something she couldn't afford to spend. She had standards, and the child met them. They exceeded them, sometimes. And still, the kitchen was quiet. Always so quiet. But here's what that child didn't know. What none of us know about the people who raise us, until it's almost too late to learn. She had been a child too, once. She grew up in a house where emotions were a kind of weakness. Where love was demonstrated through provision, not expression. Where the highest compliment you could receive was that you were strong. Where softness, in women especially, was treated as a liability you couldn't afford. She had been taught, by people who were taught the same thing, that to love someone loudly was to expose them. That children who were praised too easily became fragile. That a mother's job was not to be your friend. It was to prepare you for a world that would not be gentle with you. She was doing what she knew. She was passing on what had been passed to her. Still waters run deep. English proverb. We say it about rivers, but it belongs to people like her. People whose surface gives nothing away. People whose interior life would drown you if you ever got close enough to see it. She wasn't cold. She was fluent in a language that had no word for I love you, only actions, only sacrifice, only the quiet act of staying when staying was hard. The tragedy was not that she didn't feel. The tragedy was that she never learned how to let you see it, and she never found a way to teach you how to look. Eventually, the child left. Not dramatically. No slammed doors, no tearful airport goodbye. Just a quiet, inevitable drift of a person who has decided, without fully deciding, that proximity to this woman costs more than the distance. University, then a city, then a life built carefully around the space she occupied. Phone calls on Sundays, shorter each year. The conversation covering the same safe ground. Work, health, the weather, how much things cost now. Polite, efficient. Two people who loved each other using small talk as a firewall. The child would hang up and feel, what? Not sadness. Exactly. Something closer to exhaustion. The particular tiredness of performing normalcy with someone you wish you could actually reach. They made peace with it the way you make peace with a chronic ache, not by healing it, but by learning to move around it, by deciding that this was simply the shape of that relationship, that some people express love in a frequency you'll never quite tune into, that you can grieve what you didn't get and still get on with your life. So they got on with their life. The phone calls got shorter, the visits got rarer, and the distance, the real distance, the one measured not in miles but in the things left permanently unsaid, quietly, steadily grew. The call came on a Tuesday. These calls always seem to arrive on ordinary days. The universe doesn't pause to give you a meaningful backdrop. It was raining. There was a half-eaten sandwich on the desk. The phone buzzed, and a name appeared on the screen, and something in the body knows before the mind catches up. She had been ill for a while, long enough that the end wasn't a shock, exactly. But grief doesn't negotiate with logic. It arrives in its own shape, and the shape it arrived in here was strange. Because the first thing the child felt, before the crying, before the phone calls, before the practical machinery of death begins to move, was something that shamed them deeply. Relief, not because she was gone, but because the tension was finally over. Because the indefinite sentence we never quite got there had at last been commuted into something with a definite ending. Because you cannot disappoint someone who is no longer here to be disappointed. That relief sat alongside the grief like an uninvited guest at a funeral. And the child carried both of them down the aisle of a church where a woman they had never quite known lay in a white-lined box. The service was short. She would have wanted that. No fuss. It was 3 weeks after the funeral that they returned to clear the house. These are strange hours, the slow inventory of a life. Every drawer a small excavation. Every cupboard a negotiation between sentiment and practicality. Every object a question. What do we do with this? Her bedroom was lost. Her wardrobe still smelled of her, that specific combination of cedar and the particular soap she had used for 40 years. The kind in a yellow box. The child will encounter that smell for the rest of their life in supermarkets, and the floor will tilt beneath them every time. The box was on the top shelf, behind her good coat, pushed to the back, the way you push things you don't want to explain. A cardboard box. The kind wine bottles come in reinforced at the corners, and on the side, in her handwriting, her precise, deliberate handwriting, a single column of years. 1997, 1998, 1999, all the way to last year. The child stood on the step stool and held it and didn't move for a long time. They brought it to the bed, opened it. Inside, 27 envelopes, each one sealed, each one with a date in the top corner, always the same date, year after year. The child's birthday. Not one of them had been sent. They sat on the edge of their mother's bed, in the cedar and soap room, and held the first envelope. And for a long time, they couldn't bring themselves to open it. The first letter was dated 1997, the child's first birthday. The handwriting was younger, slightly less controlled than the woman they remembered. The paper had gone soft at the fold lines from being handled, then put away, then handled again. It began without a greeting. Straight into it, the way she did everything. I don't know how to do this, she wrote. No one told me it would feel like this, like holding something so completely yours and being so completely terrified of breaking it. You looked at me today when we brought out the cake, and I thought I will spend the rest of my life trying to be enough of that look. And then, I am not good at saying things. I never have been. So I am writing them here instead. Even if you never read this. Even if I burn it next year, I need somewhere to put it. That was the moment. She had been writing to this child every year, in secret, because she had no other container for what she felt. Not because she didn't feel it, because she felt it so completely, so overwhelmingly, that it had nowhere to go except here, onto a page, into an envelope, onto a shelf. What the mother sings to the cradle goes all the way to the coffin. Traditional proverb. What is given to us in our earliest years, the love, the silence, the song sung and unsung, shapes the whole of who we become. She had been singing all along, in a room by herself, into envelopes she couldn't send. The child read the first letter twice, then sat very still, then reached for the second envelope. They read all 27 that afternoon. The year the child had a fever that lasted 5 days. She wrote, I sat outside your door at 3 in the morning, and I could not pray in words, only in the feeling. I think God understands feelings better than words anyway. The year of the graduation, the one where she stood at the back of the hall and did not cry and offered a single firm handshake as congratulation. She wrote, "You walked across that stage and I had to look at the floor because I could not let anyone see my face. I have never been so proud of anything in my life. I am sorry I don't know how to show you that without falling apart in front of you." The year of the argument, the one that led to 6 months of near silence, she wrote 3 full pages. A woman trying to understand herself, her own rigidity, her own fear of being wrong, ending with, "I know I was wrong. I don't know how to say it to your face. So I am saying it here, where it is safe." The tree remembers what the axe gets. African proverb. The tree carries every strike in its rings, faithful and permanent. The child had spent years carrying what they believed was rejection, cataloging the silences, the withheld words, the cold kitchens. What the letters revealed was that the mother had been carrying it all too. Every moment, every silence, every misconnection, recorded faithfully, year after year, in the rings of these envelopes. She had forgotten nothing. She had loved loudly, completely, in a room the child was never allowed to enter. And the child sat with that, the specific staggering weight of it, for a very long time. The last envelope was different. It wasn't sealed. The flap was just folded in loosely, the way you'd leave something you intended to be opened, as if she had known, this time, that it would be read. The date in the corner was 8 months ago. She would have known by then. The doctors had told her. The letter was shorter than the others. 1 page, front only. The handwriting slower, deliberate in a new way, the way handwriting becomes when it costs something to form. It began, "If you are reading this, then I did not find the courage to give you the box myself. I kept thinking I would. Every year I thought, this is a year I will simply hand it to them. And every year I couldn't. I think I was afraid of what your face would do." And then, toward the bottom, this, "I need you to know that every cold morning, every standard I held you to, every silence, I believe I was teaching you strength. I thought if I could make you capable, I could make you safe in a world I already knew would not be gentle with you. I understand now that what I was teaching and what you were learning may not have been the same thing. That is a grief I carry into this. I loved you in the only language I had. I'm sorry it sounded so much like silence. Find someone to say it to. Don't make them wait for the box." The child held that page for a long time. Outside the window, the evening light was doing what it does, turning everything briefly gold before it goes. I want to speak to you directly now, and I want you to actually hear this. Somewhere in your life, right now, there's a person who loves you in a language you haven't fully learned to read yet. Maybe it's a parent who shows up every time, silently, without being asked. Who fixes things without mentioning it? Who drives distances and pays for things and stands at the back of the room and doesn't cry and doesn't know you noticed. Maybe it's a friend who sends you articles with no message attached, just a link, because something in the world made them think of you. Maybe it's someone who has never once said the words, but who has never once not been there. And maybe you are that person to someone else. The one who feels it completely and carries it quietly and tells yourself there will be time later. A better moment. A right moment. There isn't always a better moment. She died with a box full of letters that took 27 years to write and 30 minutes to read, and the only reason her child got to read them at all was luck, the luck of being in the right wardrobe on the right afternoon. You don't have to wait for a box. You have today. You have the phone in your hand right now. You have the ability to say, in whatever language you speak, in whatever clumsy, imperfect, insufficient way you know how, "I see you. I'm proud of you. I love you." And if you are someone who grew up in a cold kitchen with high standards and a mother who handed your achievements back with a red pen, I want you to sit with this possibility, that somewhere, in some room you were never allowed to enter, someone was writing you letters they didn't know how to send. The love was real. The language was just lost in translation. Go find yours, before the wardrobe is all that's left. What would your box say? And who are you still waiting to give it to?